We'll begin first by davening that the fruit of our learning should help to bring all of the rest of the hostages back to Israel for proper burial and protect our soldiers and Am Yisrael, all of the innocents, and bring a final end to our war.
Amen.
And with that, okay, so the reason we're doing this, just to remind everyone, is because the sugya that we're doing in Yoma, we came up to a discussion about pikuach nefesh, where we had a statement in the name of Shmuel that said that we don't go after the rov, we don't go after the majority or the rov in pikuach nefesh. And the Gemara was trying to figure out what that meant by trying to find at least one case where that would be relevant. And in trying to find that case, the Gemara addressed a case where we had 10 people in some chatzer, in some yard, where 9 of them were non-Jews and 1 of them was Jewish. And then a mapolet fell on 1 of them. And now we want to say, the Gemara wanted to say that even though if we would go after Rove, after the majority, then we would argue that we wouldn't try to dig out this person on Shabbat, because chances are, right, 9 out of 10, he's not going to be Jewish. So the Gemara wanted to say this would be the case that Shmuel is talking about, where we don't go after the Rov. And even if there's this very small chance that the Jew, that we're going to dig him out. Now the Gemara goes on to challenge that by saying, but here we're talking about a case of kavua, and kol kavua kemechza mechza dami. Everything, any time we have a case of kavua, we treat it as if it's a 50-50 chance and not, in this case, a 1 in 10 chance. So, of course, we want to understand, what is this kavua? What does that mean? What are we talking about? So for this, we're digressing and looking at a more basic sugya that deals with that question, that brings it up. This idea of kol kavua kamechza mechza dami comes up several places in the Gemara. And this one is particularly, the one I chose to look at in Sanhedrin, I think will be particularly helpful because, in fact, it's going to repeat some of the same sources, and we'll see them in a larger context. So that's the introduction to the shir tonight, and this shir may extend also to next week, but I think between now and next week, I think we can get through this. So we're going to begin by having Michael Werner read the Mishnah at the beginning, which, go ahead. We did this last week, but let's do it again.
Okay. I should have brought my glasses.
Oh, I'm sorry. If it's hard for you, then
I will try.
Okay.
Nit buim.
Matnitin.
Mat meat what?
Matnitin.
Matnitin.
Which just means our Mishnah.
Oh, and I was reading. Okay, I was actually reading the next word under it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, matnitin. Okay, yes.
Our Mishnah. Nitkaven.
Nitkaven. Leharog et abehema. Veharag et adam. Lenochri vehareg et Yisrael. Nephalim, Harag et Ben Kayama Pator.
Okay, so stop there and let's see if we can translate this.
Okay, our Mishnah says intention to kill. If there's an intention to kill, or if we intend to kill an animal and we kill a human being.
Okay, so someone intended to kill an animal, and he killed a person, okay? Human being. Go ahead.
Um, he killed for Nachri.
So lanachri, right? That's a partial sentence. So what's the beginning of that sentence?
Um,
Lanachri, the haragat Yisrael.
so if the Nachri intended to kill a behemah,
No, it's to the nachri. So the nachri is the object.
okay,
Who's the subject?
then it would be, I would guess.
Well, what was the
Okay, then if the person who intended to kill behemah killed a Nachri.
right? So in other words, so it's a set. In other words, now it's a second case. So the first case is we have a person who intended to kill an animal, and he ended up killing a person. Next case, we have a person who intended to kill a nachri. In other words, I'm gonna
Okay,
take out the word behema, and I'm gonna plug in the word lanachri. Nitkaven laharog et hanachri. So the lanachri is instead of laharog et, right? So if he intended to kill a non-Jew, continue.
and he killed a Jew.
Okay.
Um,
Lanifalim. So
um,
what's a nefel? We explained last time, but you may not remember, and that's okay. A nefel, Michael Schwartz, what's a nefel?
It's a child within 30 days of its birth.
Yeah, so generally speaking, we say a child within 30 days of its birth. We don't know if it's going to be a viable human being. And elsewhere, in the Gemara and the Medrash, a nefel is removed from the direct Isur of Ritzicha, meaning I have to explain that. I'll explain that in a minute. But in other words, let's just say that the rule is if you kill a nefel, then you are patur from mitat beitin. Right? You're not chayav mitat beitin. It's not the same as killing a full-fledged person. So somebody intended to kill Nifalim, and instead harag et ben kayama. So it's a ben kayama.
presumably somebody who is older than up and has the status of a full
Right. So what's the word kayama? It comes from the word kayam.
established.
Yeah, a ben kayama would be like an established person. It's a person who we know is now a person. He's somebody who's already established as a viable human being. So so we have three cases. In all of these cases, the person who had this kavanah and ended up doing something other than his original intention, he is patur, meaning he is patur from mitat beit din. Actually, I am going to switch for just a second. Paul is in here. We know that he's hopefully in Luxembourg. I hope he made it. You know how these things are. Let's see. I'm just going to read from the very beginning of the Rambam in Hilchot Rotzeach U'Shmirat Nefesh. Let's parak that. So the Rambam says, Kol horeg nefesh adam Yisrael over below ta'aseh. Anyone who kills a person from Yisrael, in other words, a Jew, violates a negative commandment. Shneimar lo tirtzach. That's how the Rambam. That's the way the Rambam says. We should understand the words lo tirtzach. It means you're not allowed to kill a Yisrael. Im ratzach b'zadon bifnei edim mitato b'sayif. If he killed somebody intentionally in front of witnesses, then his death is with the sword. Shenamar nakom minakem. Mipi Shmuel lamdu shezo mitat saif. Right? So we learned from our tradition that this refers to death by sword. Ben sharagad chavero bebarzel, ben shesampo be'esh, mitato b'saif. Whether he killed this person with iron or he burnt him with a fire, his death is with saif. So this is how the Rambam lays out the initial halacha. This is the first halacha in Hilchot Rutzach, and he says specifically koreg nefesh adam Yisrael. And the little note here, they point out that in other versions it says koreg nefesh ben adam, anyone who kills a person. And they say shinui me'amata tzenzura. That was a difference that was made. That was a change that was made because of the fear of the censor, right? So what does that mean? That throughout Middle Ages and even later in Christian-dominated Europe, where we had instances where the church burned, like in Paris in the 12th century, they burned all of the copies of the Talmud, and elsewhere they burnt actually all copies of, they burnt the Rambam, they burnt the Mishnah Torah. So in many places, the Jews made a kind of a deal where they would self-censor and they would present their books to be, approved, and then they could publish them, but they had to either change them or in some cases, they would literally black out words. I actually saw a printed Mishnah in Beit HaNasi. This is a long time ago. Beit HaNasi, we went on Sukkot to shake hands with Chaim Herzog. This is back in the 80s. And they had some things on display, and I saw they had a Mishnah on display where it had like words that were blacked out. So this question of did the Rambam intend to say Nefesh Adam Yisrael or Nefesh Ben Adam? So essentially, it's most likely that this comment is correct. I'm not an expert on this, but most likely it's correct. And it's not because the Rambam thought that it's okay to kill non-Jews. And I told Paul we would go into this, but I'm not going to go into it anymore today. But I did find, anyone who's interested, I can send you the link. I found a very interesting discussion of this in a letter from Rav Amital to one of his students, I believe, where he goes through all the sources and the reasons why it is forbidden to kill anyone, including a non-Jew. But it means technically, if you kill a non-Jew, you would not be liable for this punishment of mitat beit din al yedei saif, right? By being put to death by the sword. So a very particular thing, and this is also going to be true if you kill, for example, a nefel, right? You also are not going to be chayav mitat beit din in this way if you kill a nefel, even if that nefel is a Jewish child. So it's a very particularized halacha in that regard, and that's enough for me to say about it right now. But I don't want anybody to be, more horrified than necessary that the Mishnah discusses it like this. But you'll see in a greater sense why. So we start off though with these three cases. So what we understand from the get-go is that one's intention is going to be relevant in terms of this halacha. If you intended to kill X and you killed Y. So we'll go through each one. So the first one is, if you killed an animal, you intended to kill an animal, but you ended up killing a person. You intended to kill a Nachri, but you ended up killing a Jew. You intended to kill a possibly unviable child, and you ended up killing a viable person. In all these cases, you're patur. Michael Schwartz, continue reading.
Can you switch the screen?
Oh, I definitely can. Thanks. Okay. Here, nitkaven.
Nitkaven lakoto al matanav, v'lo haya ba kedei lahamito al matanav, v'halcha la ala libo, v'haya ba kedei lahamito. ito al libo v'met patur.
Okay, so stop there and let's explain this.
Okay, so one who intends to strike someone on his loins, and it was not enough in order to kill him if it hit him on the loins, and he went and he hit him on the heart instead, and it was enough to kill him when he hit him on the heart, and the person did die, he's patur.
Okay.
Nitkaven lahakoto al libo, v'haya ba kedei lahamit al libo, v'hacha v'lo al matnav, v'lo haya ba kedei lahamit al matnav v'met patur. So one intends to strike someone on his heart, and it was enough to kill him if he had hit him on his heart, and he went and he hit him on the loins, and even though it wasn't enough to kill him on the loins, but he died anyway, he's still patur.
Okay, so now we're talking about not a case where his intent to hit a particular person was subverted, but what was subverted was the way this person ended up dying, right? So he intended to kill him by hitting him on the loins, but it hit him on the heart, etc. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this particular case, so we're going to keep going. Michael Werner, back to you. Nitkaven, if it's easier for you to read from here.
Maybe, yes, it will be.
Here, I can even make this bigger.
That's fine. Nitkaven להכות את הגדול, ולא היה בה כדי להמית הגדול.
Oops.
להלכה על הקטן, והיה בה כדי להמית את הקטן, ומת פטור.
Okay, so let's explain that.
So somebody who intended to kill an adult,
Very good.
and he
Lo haya ba kedei lahamit hagadol. Just try to translate it literally.
it was not in him,
In it.
the blow, so there were the violent act, in order to kill an adult.
Right. In other words, the kedei here would mean enough, right? So it wasn't, and there wasn't sufficient, let's say, power, or whatever would be pertinent to kill an adult, but he did intend to strike this adult, right? And not in a fatal, not necessarily with a fatal blow. But what happened?
And it happened and it happened that.
Well, don't end and happen. Just say what it says. The halchala al hakatan.
And he went.
And it went.
And it went, whatever the act went to a minor.
To a minor, okay.
And there was in it enough to kill the minor, and the minor died. It's patur.
Okay. So here we have a similar, now we have a case, right, where his intention was to kill an adult, but I'm sorry, his intention was to strike an adult, not necessarily to kill the adult. But whatever it was, let's say he was throwing a rock at him, and this wouldn't have been enough to kill an adult, but he moved aside and it ended up killing a child. So there also, his intention wasn't carried out, and he's patur. Why don't you do one more? Nitkaven.
He intended to kill a minor, and it was in it enough to kill the minor, and it went to an adult,
Mm-hmm.
and there was not enough in it to kill the adult.
Ba
Oh, no,
met.
and there was not enough in it.
V'lo haya ba, yeah,
There's
you're
not
right.
enough in it, enough to kill
The
the
adult,
adult, and
ba met.
but he died anyways.
He died anyway.
He's patur.
He's patur. Okay. Michael Schwartz.
Val nitkaven hakot et al matanav, v'haya ba kedei lahamit al matanav, v'achal la al libo v'met chayav.
Okay, so explain that.
But if he intended to strike him on his loins, and it was enough to kill him on those loins, and it went and it hit him on the heart, and he died, then he is liable. He is chayav.
Okay, so why should he be chayav here? What with this contrasts, right, with this earlier case where we said he intended to strike him on the loins, but there wasn't enough, let's say, power in that strike to kill him on the loins. And then it ended up killing him when it went on his heart. He's patur. So what's different about that case and this case?
So this case, his intention was to strike a killing blow.
Okay, keep going.
Not in the same location, but if if the killing blow landed somewhere else and he killed him, then he's liable. Unlike the other case where he did not necessarily intend to strike a killing blow.
Okay. Michael Schwartz, continue. Nitkaven lahakot.
Nitkaven lahakot et hagadol, v'haya ba kedei lahamit et hagadol, v'hachal la al hakatan v'met chayav. So if one intends to strike an adult, and the force was enough to kill the adult, and it went and it hit a child instead, and the child died, then he's also chayav.
Okay, so again, this contrasts with the earlier case of the adult and child, right? So what's the difference? In the first case, what happened? Michael Schwartz.
Yeah, he didn't intend to kill anybody, neither the adult and certainly not the child. And in the second case, he did intend to kill the adult, but not the child. But he's still chayav.
He's still chayav. And now we come to the last lines of the Mishnah. Michael Schwartz, go ahead and read.
Rabbi Shimon Omer, afilu nitkaven laharog et azeh, laharog et zeh patur. So Rabbi Shimon says that even if he intended to kill one and he killed another, he's not liable. He's patur.
He's patur. Okay, so now our question is going to be, what part of the Mishnah is Rabbi Shimon arguing with? So let's understand Rabbi Shimon's contention. What's his halacha? What's his halacha?
So if he intended to kill one person and he killed somebody else instead, then he's patur. He's exempt from capital punishment.
Okay, and how does this contrast with anything that the Tanna Kama said?
Because we saw in at the end that if he intended to kill an adult and instead killed a child, he is chayav. So he killed someone differently. He went in with the intention to kill, and although he ended up killing somebody, or the child in this case it was different than the adult, he's still chayav.
Okay, so our initial understanding that you're saying is that Rabbi Shimon argues with this last keta here in the Mishnah, that, or maybe even here, but let's say here, maybe the very last one. So the very last thing that the Tanna Kama said was this case of someone who intended to kill an adult, and whatever he was using to kill was enough to kill the adult, and then it went and killed a minor, a child, and that child died. So he's chayav, and now you're saying Rabbi Shimon disagrees with that, and he says even if he intended to kill this one, in other words, now we'll plug in, even if he intended to kill the adult, but he killed the child, then he's exempt, right? And that's not enough of a fulfillment of his intention to make him chayav. So that's one possibility. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at the Gemara, because actually the Gemara is going to reject that reading of the Mishnah. We have to see why. So let's go and let's look at the Gemara. So back to you, Michael Werner.
Okay. Rabbi Shimon, Ahia, Ilema, Asifa, Rabbi Shimon, Poter, Mibele.
Okay. Ella.
Ella, Aresha. מתכוון להרוג את הבהמה והרג את האדם, לנוכרי והרג את ישראל, לנפלים והרג את בן קיימא פטור. אחד מתכוון להרוג את זה, והרג את זה חייב.
Keep going.
Just lost my place. Rabbi Shimon אומר, אפילו נתכוון להרוג את זה, והרג את זה פטור.
Okay, so this is a lot. Let's go through it carefully. So the Gemara starts off by asking this question. Rabbi Shimon Ahia. They say Ahia, I say Ahia, whatever. So what's Ahia mean? If anybody knows. Okay, Michael Schwartz, you know?
Sure, no.
It means, so is a prefix that means al in Hebrew. It means on. Hia would mean which. On which. And Rabbi Shimon is referring to which statement of the Tanna Kama earlier in the Mishnah. Which part of the Mishnah is he referring to? So, ilema asefa. So what is, Michael Werner, what do those words mean? Ilema asefa.
He's referring to the end.
So what does ilema mean? So ilema is a conjunction of two words, e and lema. So e means if, and lema means
to say.
if we were to say. Very good. So e lema means if we were to say seifa.
If the end, the end.
On again, is al. If we're saying it's on the end, which he's referring to the end. Rabbi Shimon poter mibaile. So mibaile means what? Anybody.
Creates a problem.
That's a good guess because it's from the same root, but mibai also can mean needs. It can also mean needs. It would need it. Rabbi Shimon poter, it would need it to say, in other words. So let me just say this in a more fluid fashion. So the Gemara wants to know, when I come to Rabbi Shimon says, even if he intended to kill this one and he killed that one, he's still patur. So now I want to know, so what is he referring to? In other words, Rabbi Shimon is coming to give an alternate opinion. He's coming to be cholek, to disagree with something that was said earlier. So what exactly is he disagreeing with? So if you say he's disagreeing with the seifa, which is the end of the Mishnah, which is exactly what Michael Schwartz said. So Michael Schwartz said, if you say that he's referring to this last geta, that the Tanna Kama says that he intended to kill an adult, and there was enough in his strike to kill an adult, that it ended up killing a child, and the child died. Tanakama says he's chayav. Now we want to say that Rabbi Shimon is arguing with that, and he's saying that no, he's patur. So the Gemara doesn't like that. Why not? Because ilema aseifa, if you say that Rabbi Shimon is arguing with the end of the Mishnah, Rabbi Shimon poter mibaile, then the Mishnah should have said Rabbi Shimon is poter. What did the Mishnah say? In other words, how does that differ from the way the Mishnah is actually phrased? If you understand my question. In other words, you might say, well, wait, he did say he's patur. So what is the Mishnah, what's the Gemara here picking at in the Mishnah? What is in the Mishnah that is essentially extraneous? If that meaning, if all I wanted to do is show that Rabbi Shimon disagreed with the Tanakama on this last case, then the Mishnah should have simply said Rabbi Shimon poter. So what does the Mishnah actually say?
It adds that extra phrase, "Afilu nitkaven laharog et zeh." So there's that extra phrase. It's not necessary.
So the extra phrase is not necessary, and also what becomes difficult to understand is especially this word afilu, even. What does it mean, even if? That's exactly the case. It's not even if that happens. That's the case he's arguing with. He's not adding on anything to the seifa by saying afilu nitkaveh. If you see what I mean. And that's what the Gemara means when it says the Mishnah could have just said Rabbi Shimon poter. So the Gemara rejects that. And they say that it must be that Rabbi Shimon, that's not where the main argument is. Ella, I know it's a little hard for you, but I just want to know before we go on, did you understand what I just said, or were you too out of it? And I don't mean to embarrass it.
I'm not sure.
Okay, so let's say it again. Let's say it again.
I'm gonna try.
And I appreciate it, but don't worry, everybody needs to hear it again. I'm sure that Michael Schwartz will not be unhappy.
Yes,
if
I
we go
do.
through it again.
Okay.
Okay, so again, we read the Mishnah, and we have all these cases from the Tanakama, and at the end of the Mishnah, Rabbi Shimon says, even if somebody intended to kill this one and he killed that one, he's patur. So now the Gemara wants to know, when Rabbi Shimon said that, what specific statement in the Mishnah was he arguing with? What was his argument with? And so if you say that he was arguing with the last statement of the Tanakama, where the Tanakama said, what did the Tanakama say? Go ahead, Michael Warner, and read it again. Nitkaven.
If he intended to strike a blow on an adult, and wasn't it enough to kill the adult, and the blow ended up falling on a minor, and the minor died, he's chayav.
Okay, so now, if you want to say that Rabbi Shimon is arguing with that statement, then what would be the logic of him saying that he argues with that statement? What does Rabbi Shimon say?
If you intend to kill one person, you killed another, then you're patur.
Then you're patur, so I could
It
say.
seems to be a direct contradiction.
So it seems to be that Rabbi Shimon is directly arguing with that statement, except that the Gemara says, if that were to be the case, if that's what the Mishnah meant to tell us, then the Mishnah should have just said, Rabbi Shimon poter. It should be short and sweet. So we understand that everything that the Mishnah says, we are going to assume a priori that it's there for a specific reason. And so if I understand that, then I have to understand, why did Rabbi Shimon add all these words? Afilu nitkaven laharog et zeh v'harag et zeh. Even if he intended to kill this one and killed that one. So what does it mean even if? Because if he just disagreed with that one case, it's not even if, he's just saying that case I disagree with. So even implies that it's odyoter, right? That there's something more. He's disagreeing on even more than whatever was said previously. So the Gemara says, rather a reisha. Rather, it must be that Rabbi Shimon disagrees with the reisha of the Mishnah. So now we quote the reisha of the Mishnah, and Michael Schwartz, read this again. I read this now. Nitkaven.
Nitkaven laharog et behema, v'harag et hadam, l'nochri v'harag et Yisrael, l'nafalim v'harag et ben kaima batur. Hanitkavan laharog et zeh, v'harag et zeh chayav. Rabbi Shimon Omer, afilo nitkaven laharog et zeh, v'harag et zeh patur.
Okay, so what did the Reisha say? This is the very beginning of the Mishnah. What did the Reisha say?
So if one intends to kill an animal and he kills a person instead, if he intends to kill a nochri and he kills a Jew instead, if he intends to kill a nofalim and he kills a established person, a ben kayam, he's patur. But if he intends to kill,
okay, no. So now notice I changed the font here. So all of that's a direct quote from the Mishnah. And now I have the Gemara. The Gemara is going to say, so what do all these cases imply? Go ahead now.
But if he intends to kill one person and he kills another person, then he's chayav. He's
Okay, so let's stop there. How does the Gemara know that that's the? How does the Gemara come to this conclusion? Hanit kaven laharog et zeh v'harag et zeh.
maybe because had that case been included in the list, then it would if they were patur in that case, laharog et zeh, then it would have been included in the list and would have been said patur. The fact that it wasn't included, maybe we can infer that one who does that is chayav.
Okay, so broadly, yes. In other words, when I look at this reisha, it gives me three cases of a person who's patur. So a person who intended to kill an animal, that killed a person. A person who intended to kill a non-Jew, he killed a Jew. He intended to kill a nefel, but he killed a ben kayama. All of those cases, he's patur. So what does it imply? But if he intended to kill Reuven and he ended up killing Shimon, then the implication is chayav, because that would just like you said, if he was patur in that case, that actually should have been the first case, because if he's patur when he's trying to kill, this Jew, and he kills another Jew, another viable adult Jew, if he's patur for that, then I don't need the rest of these cases, right? All these other cases are going to be obvious. Obviously, if he intended to kill a behema and he killed somebody, obviously he's going to kill, right? All the other cases become obvious. Okay? So, did you understand what I just said?
I think so.
Okay, so try to say it again.
And
So we'll start from here. Ella Aresha. So Rabbi Shimon, we've established that Rabbi Shimon, when he says, even if you had intention to kill this one and you killed that one, you're patur. So we've established that he wasn't referring to this last case in the Mishnah. Rather, let's see if it works to say that he's referring to the very first case. Now, just as a matter of methodology, I'll just point out that's a kind of an obvious, or it would be a logical methodology. That is, whenever I have a series of statements and I have whatever the ending statement, in this case that's Rabbi Shimon, so my default is to say it probably refers back to whatever came right before. But now I've rejected that. So he's saying it can't be that that's what he's referring to, because the language doesn't hold up. So then what's the next most logical thing? It probably goes back to the very beginning. In other words, it's going to be harder to say it goes to something in between. It's just like in general, like it's a methodological point. Okay, so let's say instead that Rabbi Shimon, when he says that nitkaven laharog et zeh v'harag et zeh patur, he must have been referring to the very beginning of the Mishnah. So what did I learn in the very beginning of the Mishnah, Michael Werner?
If he intended to kill an animal and killed a human being, if he intended to, or if he intended to kill a Nochri and he killed a Jew, if he intended to kill somebody who is not an infant who is not yet legally
Who's not viable.
who's not viable, and he killed somebody who was viable, he's patur.
Okay. And so what is that? So now the Gemara says, ha, in other words, what do those cases imply to me halachically?
So, but if he intended to kill somebody else, okay, you intend to kill one person, killed another person, he's chayav.
Okay, and how is that implied from these cases?
In all these cases, in all these cases, it doesn't, the person who intended to kill was not of equals, was not necessarily legally fully a person.
Okay, that's correct. I think that's a reasonable way of.
And then he ended up killing somebody who hadn't.
And even though he does end up killing somebody for whom had he intent. So that's the point. So all of the people that he kills are people that had he intended to kill them, presumably he would have been chayav, right? Because if the Mishnah wanted to tell me that he's patur, then it should have just said that. It should have just said nitkaven laharog et zeh v'harag et zeh patur, right? And then all of these other cases, then I don't need any of the other cases, right? Because all these other people don't fit into the category. All the other victims don't fit into the category, or the potential the intended victim. Thank you. All the intended victims don't fit in the category of someone for whom he will be chayav. So if I say he's patur in the case where I know he should be, where I know there's at least a basis to say that he's chayav and he's patur there, certainly he'll be patur in all these other cases. But the Mishnah starts with these cases where all the intended victims are people who are not necessarily people for whom he'll be chayav, and in fact, he's patur. So it implies that if his intended victim was a fully fledged adult Jew, then he should be chayav. So that's the clear implication of the Reisha of the Mishnah. And now, when I read Rabbi Shimon says, "Afilu nitkaven laharog et zeh v'harag et zeh patur." So now I understand that was the statement that he was arguing with. That's the afilu. No, not just the cases that you brought, Tanakama, but even if it was a more chamur case, where the person he intended to kill was a full-fledged Jew, and he killed somebody else, he would still be patur. So now we've established. So this is the machloket between Rabbi Shimon and the Chachamim. It's about this case of nitkaven laharog et zeh v'harag et zeh. Very good. So this is the important foundation for understanding the rest of the sugya that we're going to do. And just give me 1 second. Okay. So now we're going to go and examine this in kind of a greater depth. So, Michael Schwartz, I want you to read Pshita.
The Shita. Kai Ruvain v'Shimon v'Amar, Ana liRuvan ka mikvana, v'Shimon lo ka mikvana, Hainu paluktehu. Amar lachad v'luktehu.
Pluktayu.
Oh, Taihu, oh, Balub Taihu. Amar lechad minahu, my iname savur Ruven, and v'nimtza Shimon, my.
Okay, so stop.
Okay,
So let's stop. So what does pshita mean?
it's obvious.
Okay, so we're going to start out what the Gemara is going to do here by saying pshita. We often see pshita after the Gemara has already established something, and then they say that was obvious. Like, why did you even tell us that? Here, we're going to start off, and we're going to acknowledge to begin with that we're going to bring cases that are obvious. We want to start out with cases that are going to be obvious. So, what's the first case? Kai Ruven v'Shimon. What does that literally mean? Kai means what?
I thought it meant refer to, but it doesn't make sense here. I don't.
Oh, that's okay. So that's a second. You're right, and it's a secondary meaning.
Oh, okay.
The literal meaning of Kai just means stand, right?
Oh, okay.
It's another way of saying Kai Ruven and Shimon. Ruven and Shimon are both there. They're both standing there, and it's right in front of him, right in front of, let's say the third person, our theoretical potential murderer, right? We're going to call him Levi.
Okay.
So Levi's standing there in front of Ruvain and Shimon. And what does he say? Ve'amar, what did he say?
He says, I to Ruvain intend, to Shimon I don't, or I don't intend. That is half and half.
No, so Pluk no, again, so okay, or what? Do you know?
No, well, or no, I'm not sure.
Plukta, it's from the same root. Plukta means a machloket. It's the same idea, it's the same linguistic concept, right? Because just your nitiyah, right? You wanted to say that it meant something about half, right? Because liflog palag, right, is to divide. So a plukta is a division, and that's another word for an argument. There's a division of opinion.
Oh, okay.
It's the same thing in Hebrew. The chalek is to divide, right? Machloket is a division of opinion. Okay. Michael Werner, what's a plukta?
A machloket.
Very good. And how do you know that?
Because you just said so.
That's very good. That's very, very good. I told you my Shir Rebbe, Rabbi Miller, very often, right? This is one of his favorite phrases when nobody was answering the question. He would say, "You don't have to think. You just have to say what I told you." But he would scream it much louder and more convincingly than me.
You're not a very convincing screamer.
I'm sorry, I know, but he was very good at it.
Now that would wake me up.
Believe me, you would not fall asleep in his class. And if you did, he
would run me out of town.
Oh my gosh, you would.
Or I just would not last
Or
in class.
yeah, and by the way, that did happen to people. There were people who did drop out.
Just getting heights and can't stay awake. So they're gonna just
people dropped out not so much because they couldn't stay awake, but because there were people that
were too sensitive.
Yeah. There was a time that he actually.
You told us the story.
Yeah, somebody broke down and cried. He was a fully grown adult. I was 16. I think this guy was like in his 30s.
Wow.
And then he apologized. I would tell you though that 99.9% of the time he really knew each student and he knew how far he could push them. It's quite a fine talent. It's really a fine talent. And I don't have the talent of yelling at people. Certainly not
Calibrating
that
the-
many. It's just, it's not in me. I can't do that. I try to calibrate and pull things out of you in other ways, but I'm not on the level of a Rabbi Miller. In any event, Kai Reuven B'Shimon. So now, we're gonna. So the Gemara is saying pshita. So this is an obvious case. In other words, we're laying out essentially a case that reflects the way we understand now the Reisha of the Mishnah, the implication that we got from the Reisha of the Mishnah, in contrast with Rabbi Shimon's opinion. So it's obvious that if I have two people standing in front of me, Reuven and Shimon, and Levi comes and says, I intended to kill Reuven and I did not intend to kill Shimon, right? But nonetheless, what happened?
He killed Shimon
He
instead.
killed Shimon, right? In other words, this would be, we can imagine this is the scenario right after, let's say he threw a rock, right? He threw this rock and he said, and he killed Shimon. And he immediately says, look, I was trying to kill Reuven. I wasn't trying to kill Shimon. So, Hainu Pluktayu. That's their machloket. It's whose machloket?
Is the machloket between Rabbi Shimon and the Resha.
And right, the Tanakama, the
Tanakama.
Resha. Okay. In other words, and what would each of them say? What would the Tanakama say? And what would Rabbi Shimon say?
It would seem that the Tanakama would say that he's chayav.
That Levi is chayav for killing Shimon, even though he intended to kill Reuven, and Rabbi Shimon would say,
He's patur.
even though what?
Even though he killed.
Even though what?
Even though he killed, even though the person who was killed was not his intended victim.
Very good. Okay, so that's pshita. That's the obvious case. Now, Michael Schwartz, Amar lechad minayin.
He said to one of them, what is it? What is it? What's the law? Or
yeah, what would be the law? Inami.
Alternatively, that he's that it's the opinion he's like Reuven and he found Shimon. What's the law? I'm not sure I understand that.
Okay, the word here, kasavur, would mean that he thought.
Not of the opinion, but he thought it was Reuven and he found Shimon. Or
yeah, then what would be the din?
what was the
So tashima.
So coming here, it's taught in a Baraita, Rabbi Shimon Omer, it says until he says Liploni ani mitchaven, until he says to so and so I intended.
Okay, so just 1 second. I didn't get all of the Rashis on my page. 1 second. Okay, I'll have to leave Rashi, I think, for next time, but let's just do this. Okay, so we started off, we said we have an obvious case where we know this is the machloket between Tanakama and Rabbi Shimon, and that's if Reuven and Shimon are standing in front of Levi, and Levi said, I intended to kill Reuven, but I ended up killing Shimon. Tanakama is going to say he is chayav, and Rabbi Shimon is going to say he's patur. But now we want to know, what about cases that are not obvious? So what's the first case that's not obvious? Amar lechad minai. He said one of them, to one of them, meaning I intended to kill one of them, meaning either one. I don't care which one. I'm out to kill one of them. So whichever one dies is fine with me. So then what would be the din according to the Tanakama and according to Rabbi Shimon? Inami, or like you say, or meaning, or also meaning, like you say, or alternatively, I could ask a different question. Kisavur Ruvain, he thought that he was killing Ruvain, but it ended up that it was Shimon. He really thought that this is going to go directly to Ruvain, ended up killing Shimon. So what's the din? So Tashima, so we can come and learn from this, because we learn in a Braita. Rabbi Shimon says in a Braita, he has a different Lashon than he had in the Mishnah. In the Mishnah, he said, Afilu nitkaven laharog et zeh v'harag et zeh patur. And in the Braita, he adds, Ad shiomar lifloni ani mitkaven. Until he says, I intend that particular person. So what's the full statement that Rabbi Shimon is saying that he would have said? In other words, what does Rabbi Shimon mean? Ad shiomar lifloni ani mitkaven. What does this add to our understanding of Rabbi Shimon?
So he's not regarded as having intended to kill whoever the victim was, unless he actually said aloud, I intend to kill that person.
I intend to kill that person, and then what happened?
And he killed that person.
And he killed that person. So Rabbi Shimon demands, in order to make him chayav, he won't be chayav until he both expresses his intention to kill Ploni, and then he actually kills Ploni, and not Almoni. Right? He killed Reuven and not Shimon. So this answers our questions, right? So the first question was, what if he said, I want to kill one of them? What would be the din according to Rabbi Shimon? I want to kill one of them. He'll be patur, because he didn't name the person he wanted to kill. And what was the second one? He thought that person A was Reuven, and he wanted to kill Reuven. It turns out person A is actually Shimon, and he ended up killing Shimon. So what would Rabbi Shimon say?
It's patur.
He's patur. Okay. And in those cases, what would the Tanakama say?
She's
Chayav.
Presumably he's going to be chayav, because Tanakama holds that any time that he's mitkaven laharog et zeh v'harag et zeh, he'll be chayav. So I don't care about all these details. I don't care if he thought this or he thought that. Okay. Now we get to the crux of the matter, which is good, because it's going to be, this is what we're going to focus on next time. But let's look at it now, and to make this a little easier, I'll push that to the next page. And I don't know why this should be a bigger font. Just a second. There we go. Okay. So now, Michael Werner, my Tama.
My Tama de Rabbi Shimon. Amar Kara. The Acharav lo v'kam alav. Ad shehit kaven lo. Ad shehit kaven lo. Rabbanan Amri Debe Ravi Yanai Aparat Mizoret Evan Legomer.
The
Go.
go. That was a completely reasonable mistake because usually we see Gimel Vav with a chupchik
Right.
and it's short for Gomer. But here there's no chupchik, so it's just Liga. Okay, so now you're going to do your best to explain this. Mai ta'ama de Rabbi Shimon.
What is the reasoning of Rabbi Shimon?
Okay, and that's a correct translation. And it usually means, it'll often mean, what is his source? Or because it fits into the same idea. In other words, what's the reason the Rabbi Shimon said what he said? So Amar Kra,
Makra.
what does that mean?
Not.
Well, you know what Amar means.
He said.
It said.
It said.
Kra.
Declared and.
Here it's going to be a noun, right? Amar Kra. It's going to be a noun.
So he said. Statement.
Okay.
Declaration that he intended to kill.
It's okay. No, it's wrong, but I appreciate your effort. Michael Schwartz, what does Amar Kra mean?
He said the verse, across the verse, a citation from the Torah pasuk.
Right. So Kra, which in Hebrew we usually would say Mikra, right? The Mikra said, and the Mikra can mean all of Tanakh, or it could mean a specific pasuk in Tanakh. And here also Kra. And it's here means the pasuk says. Amar Kra. The Kra says. What did the Kra say?
And actually to recognize where this comes from. And he lay in wait for him, and he ambushed him. So
Okay, so keep.
He lay in wait for him and ambushed him.
And rose up against him. Whereas you keep it simple, right? Because it's important. Ambush implies that he lied in wait for him and attacked him, right? That's the ambush, right? But the Torah is not saying ambush; it's dividing that into two things. That va'arav lo, that he lied in wait for him, and then he rose up against him. That's how I would understand.
Sounds like an ambush to me.
It isn't, the result is an ambush, but you can't translate the word.
No, okay.
That's the point.
That's okay.
And here you'll see it's particularly important because the Torah divided into two words, va'aravlo v'kamalav. And what's the drasha? Ad she'it kavein lo. What does that mean?
Until he fulfilled his intention against him.
No, it doesn't say you have to fulfill it. What does she'it kavein lo mean?
He intended.
Until he ad she'it kavein lo, until he intends to him. He intended him. So what does that mean? Okay, so 1 second. Let's look at the whole pasuk, which should be here.
Right, this passage that lay out the difference between manslaughter and murder.
Hold on a second. Let's make this a little bigger. Oops. There we go. All right, let's just go with this. V'chi ish sonei l're'ehu, v'arav lo v'kama lav, v'hikahu nefesh v'meit v'naseh l'chat ha'arim ha'el. All right, so what does all this mean? Michael Schwartz.
When a man will hate his fellow man, and he will lie in wait for him and rise up against him, and he will strike him, his soul, and he dies, he will flee to one of these cities. One of these cities is referring to the cities of refuge.
Right. What do you want to say?
What he said, I'm going to the Aramei Miklat.
Okay. So here we have a person. And so what do we know about this person? So he hates his fellow man, and he lied in wait for him, and then he rose up against him, and then he dealt him a mortal blow, and that person died. Then this person, the murderer, who with malice aforethought killed his fellow man, he now runs to one of the Arei Miklat. Okay, so what's the drasha that our Gemara said? The Gemara says, "V'arav lo v'kamalav ad sheyitkavein lo," until he intends for him. So, what do you understand that to mean? Ad sheyitkavein lo.
Until he
Who's the he?
the murderer
Okay.
rise up until he intends to kill, until he fulfills what he intended to kill, which is to murder.
That's still a partial sentence. Ad sheyitkavein lo, until the murderer intends to kill a specific person, then what? What's the end of the sentence?
Then he's Chayal. So once he kills an intended victim, then he's Chayal.
Okay, or in other words, ad sheyitkavein, until he has that intention, he'll be patur. Or that's
So anything falling short, that is
right. So ad sheyitkavein lo, until he intends for him specifically, then he's going to be patur. But if he fulfills that condition, that he had intention for that specific person, then he'll be chayav. Now, that's Rabbi Shimon's drasha. How does he learn it from these words? Va'arav lo v'kamalav. How does he know it from those words?
Well, it mentions before that specifically a specific person that the murderer hates. Is it referring back to that, or is it just those words?
I would say it depends. So first of all, this is an important point that you're bringing up. There are many instances in the Gemara and the Chazal where they quote part of a pasuk, and the actual drasha is based on other parts of the pasuk. They're only quoting those words to refer you to that pasuk, because of course, remember, this is at a time way before people referred to psukim by chapter and verse. So that sometimes they just refer to part of a pasuk, and they intend for you to know the whole pasuk, and you get it from the rest of the pasuk. It happens in this particular case, they want the drasha has to do with these words in particular, but of course it is important to know the beginning of the pasuk, where we're talking about a person who's murdering someone that he knew and presumably intended to murder that person. But how do I know that he's not going to be chayav until he fulfills this? Because here, I could have started off the verse like this, the same way. Okay, so Levi hates Reuven. We'll just put it in simple form. Levi hates Reuven. All right, that's the first thing. And then he lied in wait for him, and then he rose up against him, and then he dealt him a mortal blow, right? So he hates Reuven. He lied in wait for Reuven. Then he rose up against Reuven, and he dealt a mortal blow to Reuven. So, if he fulfills all of those conditions, then Nasa Lachat Ha'arim Ha'el. So, what are the words from the words V'aravo v'kamlo? How do I know that it has to be specifically him? Has to be specifically Reuven that he intended to kill.
It says lo.
It says lo. So why didn't the pasuk just say V'chiye ish sonei re'ehu v'kamalav?
Oh, the Arav
Or
implies that there was.
V'aravlo?
Oh, no, because it's
Wait, Michael Schwartz, go ahead.
No, I just read it as it implies that there's this real intent. He plans it. It's not a crime of opportunity. It's planned. He wants to do this. He's going out of his way to do this. He's waiting to do this.
Okay, so V'aravlo, because if I leave out the words V'aravlo, then I would read the pasuk as follows. So I could say, he hated Reuven, and then he rose up against Reuven and killed him. But meaning what? Then
it could have been a crime of passion.
It could have been a crime of passion. It could be that he didn't actually intend to kill Reuven. But Va'aravlo tells me that, as you say, it's premeditated. We know that he's out to get Reuven. That's how Rabbi Shimon understands the pasuk. So based on Rabbi Shimon's understanding, the V'aravlo, the Kamalav, and apparently he's darshing these words V'aravlo, we understand how Rabbi Shimon comes to his halachic conclusion that afil nitkaven harog et zeh v'harag et zeh is patur, because as Rabbi Shimon says in the Braita, right, and he's not going to be chayav until he fulfills his intention to kill Ploni, to kill the specific person that he had in mind. And how do the Chachamim understand it? So now, of course, now the question is going to be, that seems like a reasonable way of understanding the pasuk, right? So how do the Chachamim understand the pasuk? That they argue with Rabbi Shimon about this point, because the Chachamim say, what do the Chachamim say? What's their halacha? What's their machloket with Rabbi Shimon? That everybody knows by heart by now.
They say he's patur.
That what?
Rabbi Shimon said that he's patur.
Rabbi Shimon says that he's patur when?
Rabbi Shimon says he's patur if he intended to kill person X and kill person Y.
Okay, and what did the Chachamim say?
He's chayav.
He's chayav.
He is chayav when?
He intends to kill person X and kills person Y.
Very good. So how are the Chachamim now going to understand this pasuk differently than Rabbi Shimon? So what did the Chachamim say? And why can't I see my cursor? My battery's dying. No, that's disabled. I have to take that out to enable it, and here we go. So, because it's getting late, I'll read the Rabbanan. Rabbanan, I'll explain.
I don't see it.
I didn't switch. So thank you for pointing that out. And let's switch. So Rabbanan Amri Devei Rabbi Yanai. So the Rabbanan said from the Yeshiva of Rabbi Yanai, Prat l'zorek even lago. This excludes the case of a person who threw a rock into the middle of. In the middle of what?
Crowd of people.
A crowd of people. So, in other words, a person. So what does that mean? A person throws a rock, let's say, that's enough to kill somebody, into a crowd. So prat means this exclude, right? Prat can mean a detail, and here it means this excludes the case of a person who threw a rock into the middle of a crowd. So what excludes the case of the person who threw the rock into the middle of the crowd? Where's the exclusion?
They're using the verse "Varav lo v'kam alav" to exclude that case of throwing the rock into a crowd.
Right.
That's how they use it.
And how do they, and so how do Rabbanan come to that conclusion that this excludes the case of Zorek Evan Lego?
Because in the case of throwing the rock, it's not premeditated. It's not an ambush. No, excuse me. It's not a waiting. Sorry,
Yeah,
say it like that.
yeah. So in the summary, you can say ambush, but right, it's not premeditated. It's not premeditated that he has a specific intent. It's not premeditated that he has an intent to kill a specific person.
It's
So
funny,
according to the Chachamim, nitkaven la'rog et zeh. So in other words, the predicate, right? The first thing has to be that Levi, our potential or real murderer, he has to have intent to kill somebody in particular. So when he had intent to kill someone in particular, and he ended up killing somebody else, we still hold him to be chayav. Why don't I say, like Rabbi Shimon, Aravo, that he had to have premeditated, he had to have a premeditated understanding that he's going to kill Ploni, and then he follows through on that? Because I'll say that it's enough for me to learn from the pasuk that the pasuk excludes an even further case, and there was, as it were, a lighter case, or that's not the word I'm looking for, but a case that has a less of a prerequisite, where a person just takes a stone that's enough to kill a person, and he just throws it arbitrarily into a group of people. So there he didn't have intent to kill anyone in particular. So that's the way the Chachamim understand it. This pasuk is excluding that case. And so then what case will it support? It'll support the case of nitkaven haroget zeh v'haraget zeh. I can still understand from this pasuk that if you had kavanah to kill Ploni and you killed Almoni, that you're chayav. That's how the Rabbanan want to learn. Did you want to say something?
He sounds a bit like a mass shooter.
Well, it's funny you should say, but I won't get into that now. All right, this is where we're going to stop. And when we come next week, we're going to read this part again about my time with the Rabbi Shimon. I want to go over so everybody knows very, very well this debate, not just the machloket between the Chachamim and Rabbi Shimon, but also the basis of their machloket, because then the Gemara is going to go on and try to find an actual case where this is going to be applicable. Okay? So that'll be for next week, and that's it for now. Any last questions or comments?
Only that we went into prohibition on murder in this week's parsha, which presumably is.
So what does it say in this week's parsha?
A man who sheds blood, and his blood shall be shed in so many words.
Okay, it's shofech dam ba'adam, damo yishafech. Right? So the way you could understand that literally is that someone who sheds shofech dam ba'adam, somebody sheds the blood of a human being, damo, then his blood, meaning the blood of
the murderer.
The murderer, yishafech, shall be spilled. So, yes, so this is where Chazal, and so Pshutosha Mikra, that seems to imply that if you murder somebody, that you're chayav mita. And from here, Chachamim learned that this is one of the Sheva mitzvot b'nei Noach. And Chachamim in the Gemara in Sanhedrin, which different sugi here, we're in Sanhedrin here. They learned that actually that's where we learn What? Does anybody know? It's not the murder of, it's not a straight murder. What is it? The drasha is abortion.
Really?
Yeah, that's the basis for the drasha that prohibits abortion to a ben noach, because it says, so what is it? Shofech, how do you spill the blood of a person inside of a person? Shofech
bed.
dam ha'adam ba'adam, right? Shofech dam ha'adam ba'adam. I'm not saying it right. Shofech dam ha'adam ba'adam. I'm saying it, I'm still saying it wrong.
Shofech dam be'adam,
So shofech dam ba'adam, right? So how
damo shofech.
damo yishafech, right? So you have to kill the blood. You have to, as it were, kill something. You have to kill the person who's inside of a person, and that would imply the case of abortion. And I'm running out of battery. And I'm going to say goodbye, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye. I don't like touch points.